Hello and welcome to the Cannes Parallel Challenge 2024. My name is Arno.
And my name is Matt, and today we are going to be discussing Paul Schrader's films, Patty Hearst, and his new film, Oh, Canada. Paul Schrader, you may know him as the writer of Taxi Driver, or you may know him as the author of such Facebook statuses as, "Is this a white and Zendaya, or some generic white chick?" And of course, the classic, Kate Winslet, slumpy clothes, little overweight, no makeup, grumpy attitude, smoking, and still beautiful. Being a mentee of Pauline Kael, who recommended that he go into film criticism, he ended up writing the book Transcendental Style in 1972, which remains a classic of film criticism. And he later transitioned to screenwriting, breaking through with Taxi Driver in 1976, which gave him the attention he needed to begin directing his own films. He's known for his Bresson influence and for writing stories about troubled men who reflect on the nature of their isolation in the world. I love how unafraid Paul Schrader is to wear politics on his sleeve in all of his films. He's also really unafraid to spotlight controversial characters, seeing the humanity in oftentimes very troubled people. Paul Schrader has only been to Cannes twice in competition. One with Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters, which is one of my favorite movies, but I had not seen Patty Hearst, so we chose that one. And it also ended up being a perfect parallel film for Oh Canada, because both films share some of the same leftist political ideals.
Patty Hearst is about the titular character, Patty Hearst, who became a controversial nationwide figure when she was abducted from her wealthy family, only to join forces with the terrorist organization that kidnapped her. It stars Natasha Richardson as Hearst, as well as Ving Rhames and Oscar influencer queen Frances Fisher. I had never seen Ving Rhames in a role pre-Mission Impossible, and so this was a bit of a shock for me. He was very well built. But Matt, we have to talk about those first 30 minutes. This character is blindfolded and not able to see anything around her, nor any of her captives, and so Schrader goes into a very expressionistic direction, and this is just painfully beautiful.
Oh, it's so well done, and you can see that Paul Schrader was a film critic beforehand. His book, Transcendental Style, talks about the works of Robert Bresson, and you specifically see his influence from Carl Theodor Dreyer all over this first little bit. Patty Hearst becomes a Joan of Arc-esque figure as we see her in this room being tortured, captive, and forced to do certain things throughout. She's put through hell and back. Watching her in this room against these walls, it very much becomes a Passion of Joan of Arc portrayal of this character.
And it just shows that it's a film that isn't just a writer directing what he's written very straightforwardly, but he's really thinking cinematically and trying to see what can he do as cinematic as possible and using the language and the grammar of cinema.
Even though Schrader is primarily thought of as a screenwriter, he's a director at heart. I think we just have this connotation because he wrote a few movies for Martin Scorsese. It's more than would be expected from someone who's a screenwriter turned director.
I think one of the more interesting decisions here is, very simply put, to tell this story. This is giving a voice to a woman who was perhaps unfairly maligned by the media, that pornographic films were made about her character while she was abducted. And here Schrader kind of reclaims the story and tries to tell it from her perspective. There's really a will to kind of showcase what she was being put through without romanticizing or demonizing any of the characters surrounding her. Natasha Richardson here is doing a very interesting performance because it's a performance that kind of shows that this character is not nearly as interesting as the media made her out to be.
Like you said, she had been unfairly maligned. She had been treated as this circus act, and here he pulls that back. This story had been told before Paul Schrader took it on, but it had been done in the format of a Lifetime movie, and this easily could be a Lifetime movie, but Paul Schrader, instead of sensationalizing it, he approaches it with empathy for everyone in the story, not just for Patty, but also for the leftist group that abducts her. And in that way, it almost does a little bit of Stockholm Syndrome on the audience as well, as we kind of grow to understand where they're coming from.
I might push back just a little bit on the empathy here. I think that he isn't afraid to show the ridiculousness of this group as well. They aren't nearly as organized as they pretend they are. When it comes to values, I don't think Schrader endorses or forgives the acts of these characters, but he certainly shows humanity towards these characters.
And I agree, but he gives us the opportunity to see where they're coming from, to see why they're fighting for the values that they're fighting for. O Canada tells the story of a documentary filmmaker who now lives in Montreal after fleeing the United States to avoid the Vietnam draft. And we get to view through this film his final interview as he is dying of cancer, and it comes right off the back of Schrader's recent trilogy of the Crisis of Faith films, which was First Reformed, The Card Counter, and Master Gardener. I do not feel like this is going to be in the same vein as that. I am not going to predict anything for O Canada just because Paul Schrader is all over the place, and the source material O Canada is being adapted from, it's a book that got very mixed reviews. There's nothing here that's making me think this is going to be exceptional.
Perhaps, but I am very excited to see him in competition at Cannes, which did not happen since 1988 with Patty Hearst. Maybe this means something? I think that even if this film is quite good, it will feel somewhat slight. This is a film that's about 90 minutes long. It is intercutting past and present between the same character, one played by Jacob Elordi, the other played by Richard Gere, and I think this will not give enough time to either actor to really give much of a performance to be considered for the acting prizes. And so, like you, I'm not predicting this to win any prizes.
But I am predicting it to win the prize for the wildest Facebook status to come out of the Cannes Film Festival.
I can't wait to see the skinny dipping reunion between Coppola, Lucas, and Schrader. In the next episode, we explore the dark side of China with Jia Zhangke's A Touch of Sin and his new film, Caught by the Tides.
So join us to learn more about this underappreciated Chinese filmmaker.